BYU starting five, our day one starting five. Chase, what else do we talk about today?
We got to talk about the Big-12 schedule release and what our expectations are for this BYU season.
Welcome to our debut episode. Let's get into the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the debut episode of the Church Ball Pod, presented by the Field of 68 Network. I'm here. I'm your host, Carter Bond. With me, as always, my co-host going forward, Mr. Chase Rogers. Mr. Rogers himself.
Right, dude. I am so stoked to be doing this with you. This is going to be so much fun.
Let's go. Let's go. We get to do this for the most anticipated BYU basketball season ever. And if you're listening to this, obviously this is the first time because it's the first episode. This is what it's going to be going forward. We're going to be in the building for every single home game. We're going to get you behind-the-scenes stuff. Make sure to follow us on all social medias at Church Ball Pod. At Church Ball Pod on all social medias, TikTok, YouTube's going to be a different one. We'll put that in the link episode description below. You'll see it as well. Church Ball Pod on everything, at Chase_Rogers0, at Carter B8 for our individual socials. Follow us on there for up-to-date stuff on all BYU basketball stuff. We're going to be here all season long doing live game recaps. We're going to be previewing games. We're going to be here we're going to be previewing the season ins and out. We're also going to get former players, current players, coaches in on interviews. It's going to be so much fun. Chase, I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. You know, this isn't our first time covering a BYU basketball season. You and I both got to do it last year. Awesome season. This one's even more anticipated. Mm-hmm. You know, you and I are hoopers at heart. Like, we love basketball. Yeah. We love college basketball. And we love BYU. So doing this and combining it all together in this podcast is sweet. And it's going to be such a fun season.
And also, I think we should do a little homage to the name of the podcast. That's why it's called Church Ball, because we're not the ones on the court right now. You know, we're college age kids. We're not the ones on the court right now. Where do we go play, Chase? Where do we go play? We play church
Local
ball.
Church, man. Find a guy with the key. Let's get it running.
I know. Yeah, I mean, everyone knows what it is. Everyone knows what it is. We're playing Elders Cornball. You know how it goes. You know, I'm so excited. But yeah, Church Ball Pod. Welcome to the show. Today on the show, we're going to talk about BYU starting five this season. We're going to predict our day one starting five, and then we haven't had any media days yet or anything like that. That'll come very soon. We'll be able to cover those as well. But we're going to do our BYU starting five today, and then we're going to run through the schedule. Finally, we got the full BYU schedule out last night, and we'll go through that, talk about what games we're excited about, what certain stretches, the non-conference and whatnot. We'll get into all that. But let's start off with the BYU starting five, Chase. What's your BYU basketball starting five going into this season?
Right. Here it is. It's not super hot takey, but this is who the starting five probably should be. I wouldn't say will be, because who knows exactly. But we got to go. Starting point guard is going to be Dallin Hall. That's be the easiest pick of them all.
Okay. I have a counterpoint to that, but keep going.
Okay. We're going to run in Yegor Demon at like the 2, 3, 4. That guy's a unicorn. He's tall, but he can handle the ball. Obviously, he's the most anticipated recruit BYU basketball's ever seen. All right. So he's going to be in the starting five. I have Richie Saunders starting at my 3 2-guard spot. Him and Yegor can both just kind of run wing. You know, he's been here a few years. He's a big effort guy. Every BYU fan loves Richie, so a good chance he's starting at the beginning. I have Mawat Mag. Have to figure that out later.
Yep.
Transfer from Rutgers, defensive man. One of the 3 new guys I have in my starting five here for BYU, which will be interesting. But I have him walking down the floor, and then Kada, transfer from Utah, right on the 5. Super athletic, long, can jump out of the gym. So that's the starting five I see starting day one, Carter.
That's unfortunate because I also have the exact same starting five, so I don't need to run through it. I have the exact same starting five. I don't think there's the 4 spot is where it gets a little tricky. That's where you could, maybe move some people. And then some people would say, oh, should Foose be there since he's been with this program for a while at the 5? I think Kaba's going to get that, is what we've seen in the offseason so far. I think he's going to be the one. He's going to be in a lot of pick and roll action. And now there's finally a threat at the rim this season with him. So I think he gets that starting spot. And I think Mag has to start because of Mag. We're gonna figure out his name very quickly. We're gonna figure out how to pronounce his name very quickly. But I think he gets to start just for defensive purposes. They need a bruiser.
They need bruisers. They need athletic guys. I think what BYU fans need to realize is that this isn't going to be Mark Pope. Let's just post up Foose every possession and let him do his baby hook. This is going to be more of an NBA style offense, which is pick and roll at the top of the key, transition. We need guys like Mag and Kata to be running the rim, like you said, and have that presence. So it's gonna be different. We're not gonna see post ups nearly as much, if at all, anymore because of the way this offense is going to run.
I think that's fair. And also, when people talk about like Kevin Young's style of offense, I don't necessarily know what we know exactly what Kevin Young's style of offense is, because you can say, oh, it's going to look a lot like the Phoenix Suns. It's like, but the BYU basketball does not have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on this team. And the NBA, people talk about
Bradley Beals, though.
They do have a couple Bradley Beals. But people talk about with like NBA style, this is going to be his style of offense. But in the NBA, they're almost like automatic cars where they run themselves almost, where how much does the assistant coach necessarily matter towards the offense? That's not an indictment on Kevin Young by any means. I just think it's more of an unknown of what we're going to see, and also dealing with less talented players than he was dealing with at the Phoenix Suns.
Not only is he a first-time NBA coach, but we haven't seen him be a head coach. It's the Philadelphia 87ers.
Delaware 87ers.
Delaware 87ers. So it's been a very long time to see, this is his team. He's running it. It'll be interesting because he has NBA caliber guys on the roster. So if you want to make a case that he might do something NBA style-ish on the offense, that's what you could point to. But the bottom line is that this is college basketball, and he's not going to be messing around giving one guy, like Kevin Durant, 45% of the shots and the usage rate, because that's not how college basketball works. It's not how you win games.
And I also think, obviously, there's a lot more player empowerment with NIL, but I also think that's an appeal for Kevin Young coming to college basketball, where he's allowed to actually dictate how the offense is going to be ran and say, hey, we're going to play my style. Because, like I mentioned, in the NBA, yes, you can have a certain style, but it really 90% of it is what kind of players you have, and do you have unselfish enough players in the NBA to buy into that style, like Steph Curry and the Warriors. That's why that style works. But guess what? The Charlotte Hornets can't run the Warriors offense because they don't have an unselfish superstar and talent like Steph Curry. So I think that's interesting to point out with the Kevin Young stuff. But going into the other parts of the starting lineup, we mentioned Richie Saunders. I have Richie Saunders in there as well. I think he has to, especially because he probably got a decent amount of NIL money in the offseason. We don't know the exact number, obviously, but there's a reason he came back to BYU when he was getting recruited by schools like Kentucky and Mark Pope. I'm curious to see if we see a difference with Richie Saunders coming off the bench and a starting version of Richie Saunders, because I like Saunders as a glue guy coming off the bench, the Energizer Bunny. I don't know if he has that same effect starting. I think he'll be fine, but I'm curious to see how that plays out this season.
It's be interesting to see what kind of shots Richie's taking nowadays. He's always been a grab rebounds, hit backdoor cuts, and then hit open threes kind of guy. He going to be wanting to create his own stuff now? Does he feel like he's obligated to start shooting more? And if he is, I think he's deserved that, as you and I have talked about after all the years he's been on this team, the things he's done. But does that fit his style of play? He might just be a better, going to come in and work my butt off and be an energizer glue guy. So we'll see what that's like. Carter, I'm interested. What do you think the potential ending of season starting five could be, depending on how the season goes?
Ooh, this could go a lot of different ways. I think it's either Mag or Richie. I don't know. I could see. I think Yegor and Kaba are the only guarantees to be in the starting five at the end of the season.
All right, so you left Dallin Hall out there. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so Dallin Hall. I don't want this to seem like I'm down on Dallin Hall, and I don't like Dallin Hall. I really like Dallin Hall. He developed immensely last season. I wasn't big on him going into last season, and he proved me completely wrong, 100%. My thing with Dallin Hall is I don't like Dallin Hall being your point guard in college basketball. He's not a true point guard. He's a combo guard. I think what we're going to see by the end of the season and throughout the season is I think Yegor is going to be the point guard of this BYU basketball team, and Dallin plays that combo off guard two ball, or he's going to be playing the two position in college basketball. Because you look at these certain teams, these elite teams in the past in college basketball, you look at Carolina, where he can play that Marcus Page role where he's not bringing up the ball. He can be like at Duke, Quinn Cook, whenever Tyus Jones would bring up the ball. I think that's more suited for him because then he can get his shot. I don't trust I don't think he has great control of the offense and controlling the tempo of a game, because when the game gets tight and things get pressured filled, he kind of panics at times. And I think Yegor's more suited to fit that role of control the offense, settle down. I think he has a better feel for the point guard position. Therefore, I think Yegor's going to be running the point guard position a lot. But I think Dallon's going to have a lot more success this year playing the 2 spot.
Like that. And there was times when I think everyone who watched BYU realized that as soon as you press to these cats, there was going to be problems. And we can't put that all on Downhall's shoulders. Like, the whole team needs to break the press. But
and he was the only one that could handle the ball really last season.
At the end of the day, it was like, we have to have Downhall take the ball up for us, BYU. Otherwise, we might turn it over. Like, it was that bad. I think this speaks a lot to, and we're not trying to bash anyone on the team, but just the depth that BYU has.
Yeah.
Starting 5 really doesn't even matter, because you still have guys that we haven't even mentioned yet. You have Trevin Nell, who's entering his 6th year, one of the best shooters in the country. What's his role going to be like on the team? You have guys like Dawson Baker, who were hurt last year, but has proven in years past to create his own shot on other teams. What is he going to look like in this offense? Not to mention freshmen, Kozlowski, Catchings, Elijah Crawford. There's been buzz that he's performed Downhall sometimes as a true point guard. Not to create any drama on this podcast, but there's just so many guys in this rotation. BYU can go small, right? They can put, heaven forbid, Yegor plays the 5. Like, let's run and gun. Or they can go huge with Foose and Keita running 4 and 5. It's really interesting what it's going to look like by the end of the season.
And I want to reemphasize this point where I in no way am I trashing on Dallin Hall. I just think he's best suited playing the 2 guard in college. I think he wants the ball and wants to go score. I don't think he wants to control the offense facilitator. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's going to be his best role going forward with this team. But that kind of just speaks to the depth, like you were saying. Like, guess what? It's not where it's all reliant on Dallin Hall. Maybe last season he just had too much on his shoulders at times, because he would get cheap fouls early on in games, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what happens to this offense? Spencer Johnson, can you bring up the ball? What's going to happen here? And so I think he's gonna have a great year, but I think at the beginning of the season, I think he is going to play that point guard role, and I think people are just going to realize this Yegor kid is special.
What can we say? I mean,
how quickly are we going to start? Like, I know we're already getting it now, but how quickly is every TV broadcast going to start calling him Luka Doncic of college basketball?
I mean, parallels are already insane. Like the fact he played for
Real Madrid,
the same club back in Spain, and the fact you can barely pronounce his name. Everyone's going to be like,
yeah. Well, that's the other thing. We can't get slighted on this podcast, because I was probably calling him Igor until he put out the video like a month ago. Even when people within the team were saying, "Hey, by the way, it's Yegor," I'm like, "Nah, it's Igor. I promise, it's Igor."
Read English, all right.
And here I'm like, it says Igor, and then my dumb brain, and then all of a sudden he puts out the thing Yegor. I'm like, all right, I lose.
Sure it is. We like to pronounce it right.
Tyrod Taylor. I'm not actually going to call him Tyrod Taylor.
You actually pronounce Tyrod Taylor?
Yeah.
Finding that out for the first time. I'm not calling you Tyrod.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, anything else with the starting 5?
Nothing other than is this the best BYU roster of all time?
I need to do more homework on that.
Competition is the Jimmer, Jimmer, Emery, Brandon Davies, Noah Hartsock,
yeah.
Hollingsworth brothers on that team. As far as star power goes, this is the best. It's like maybe that Jimmer team was like the Celtics this year, where they're like every guy fit his role better, and this is more like the Olympic team, where there's just a lot of star power.
Was pretty freaking good.
2020 was great. None of those guys were NBA guys, though.
Yeah, 2020.
Line.
That's true. I mean, the fact that there are two potential NBA guys, and we didn't even talk much about Catchings, we can get into right now, is he's got a lot of buzz coming into this year, man. He's got a lot of buzz.
Is he 5-star recruit, obviously coming out of Purdue, decommitting from there to come to BYU. When you watch his stuff in practice, he can shoot the heck out of the ball. He's long, and but he plays a guard role, and that's just the new style of basketball these days.
Do you think he kind of overtakes that Jackson Robinson role a little bit?
Absolutely. I was just about to say he reminds me a lot of him, just like even longer. My big thing with him is he going to have the ability to attack the basket and take the ball inside?
Especially when you're going against like physical teams like Texas Tech.
I mean, in the Big 12 and in that grind of a schedule, if he can, and we need to see him like play games to really figure out where he's at. If he's going to be like, okay, this guy's a legit one and done cat, or if it's going to be more of next year's his year after Yegor leaves and this is his team kind of thing. But I'm excited to see him because I mean, he's still super young and he's got tons of potential.
Yeah, and like I said, Kevin Young clearly loves this kid a lot. And people are going to say, well, why isn't he in the starting lineup then? Typically with these freshmen, unless you're a superstar like Yegor and there's that spot that needs to be filled immediately, I think by the end of the season, that's the other thing we didn't touch on. You asked that question, and I did a terrible job of answering it, where I think Catchings by the end of the season will be in the starting lineup.
I think that's a good chance.
I think he's got to be.
You know, BYU's not like Duke where it's like you bring in your best 5-star kid and you're like, okay, you're starting right away. Because BYU has like 7 guys that are been here for years.
Yeah, but also, when have we ever had 5-star kids come into this program? Like,
BYU's not like Duke in a lot of ways. All right.
Yeah, no, but this is crazy. And we're in the AJ sweepstakes now. We're sitting there recruiting at the table with the Dukes, the Carolinas, the Kentuckys. I mean, we're out recruiting Kentucky at this point. Or BYU is out recruiting. We can say who cares? Who cares?
This is a BYU podcast.
Yeah, this is a BYU podcast. Well, who we kidding? We're unbiased, Chase, by the way.
100%. You'll never get a lick of bias from me or Carter.
No, not at all. I definitely, yeah. Anyhow, let's take a quick break and then let's go through the Big 12 schedule. Let's get into the schedule. Let's start off in the non-conference real quick. I'll be very honest. This is a weak non-conference schedule.
Non-conference schedule. It's the formula now for, I mean, it's BYU over the past couple of years.
The Big 12.
For the Big 12
in general.
Yeah. Do you wish BYU would schedule some big cats like what Duke and Gonzaga do every year?
This year, I'm okay with it because if I'm a BYU fan and if I'm a BYU fan, I would like BYU to play their tougher games later on in the season with a new coach and an all-new roster. Give them time to gel against the Central Arkansas, the Idahos, the Mississippi Valleys of the world, and then you can get your Providences and then get into Big 12 play because I think that's going to be huge, having that gelling period for a coach that's never coached in college basketball before. I think that's key this year. But I don't have a problem with BYU doing it. I think it's smart for BYU to schedule in the Big 12 to schedule weaker non-conference schedules and just win by 40 against these teams because you're rewarded for it. And that's my problem is you should be heavily rewarded for scheduling a tough non-conference. You really should be. And because why should these teams be rewarded for scheduling weaker non-conference games? That's what's frustrating, and I just want bigger games in college basketball. I don't want to have to. When it's like week 9 in college football, and you're getting Alabama versus New Mexico State, you're like, ugh, really? Why are we not getting Alabama versus Texas A&M right now? Like, give us a real game right now. And so I understand there's always going to be those bye games and stuff, but I just wish there were bigger games, especially in the Big 12. We're getting that more in the ACC, in the Big East, and the SEC, but not as much in the Big 12 right now. But they're rewarded for it, so why would they stop doing it?
The net rankings love a weak non-con, and remember like when the first net rankings came out and BYU was number 1.
Yeah, and you're watching this team, you're like, they're good, they can knock down threes, they're beating the crap out of these opponents, but
beat Pacific Life. Like, is that the insurance company?
Yeah, the insurance company.
Of course they're going to have insane stats. And so, but we put a lot of stock into the net ranking. And so if your goal is just to have a great net ranking, just do what BYU did last year, man. Play no one.
Yeah.
This schedule's a little different. It gets tough on the back end, Carter.
There's 3 potential tough games. That's true. And I think people are looking at that San Diego tournament at Thanksgiving, and they're looking and they're going, ooh, Purdue or NC State. I think they're kind of overlooking Ole Miss, though, because there is no such thing as an easy game against a Chris Beard coach team. No such thing. And he is a great coach, despite whatever off-the-court stuff was going on there down at Texas when he left. He had Ole Miss kind of rolling last year. They were almost a tournament team, and they were kind of a dumpster fire right before he got there. So they're going to be rolling this year. The Purdue-NC State game could get tricky. No Zach Edey, Purdue. I'm curious to see how they look this season. And then at Providence, that's going to be a fun game to watch. And that's going to be the Thanksgiving tournaments. Those can be a little misleading. But I think getting that first true road test can really tell, okay, who's got guts on this team? Who can do it on the road? Who can make that big shot when the crowd is screaming in your ear right now?
I need to do some research on this, and it's my bad I didn't do it before the podcast. When's the last time BYU traveled to the Northeast, much less the Big East, to go play a game? Because
BYU sports in general, I would say that was when they lost, or when they had that UMass game, at UMass football, because
embarrassing. I more meant basketball, but
the NIT?
Yeah, exactly. Like going to New York for the NIT, that was like 10 years ago. Like, this doesn't happen in BYU basketball, and it's because it's the Big-12 Big East, and it's going to be such a cool opportunity and environment for them, but also insanely tough because basketball is different up there, and the fans of Providence or any Big East school are psychos, and they're gonna that place is going to be packed.
That's going to be a fun game. If you're looking at, like, if you're a BYU fan, you're like, ooh, I'm looking at some road trips. Sneaky, that Providence one is one of the better ones on this list because they're not playing at Fog Allen this year, and we can just roll right into the Big 12 schedule right now. BYU not having to play at Fog Allen this year kind of stinks if you're a fan. You want to go see them play there, but they got the win there last year. Game is at the Marriott Center on a Tuesday night. A little disappointing, man. I'm not going to lie. It's a little disappointing, Chase.
There's a lot of games on this schedule. Well, I'll just say this. BYU's best games are always on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Which you and I last year noticed just killed the attendance and killed the vibe. There were times when BYU played, Houston and Iowa State, like these big games on Tuesday night, and the Marriott Center always gets a crowd, right? And the student section is always good for the most part. And they were great games, but then they played Texas, who was having a struggling season, on a Saturday, and it was like you couldn't hear a thing. It was so crazy. And just having those games on Saturday makes such a difference for the environment, and the fact that we get guys like Kansas and Arizona and Baylor on Tuesday is an atrocity. It's actually really sad. I was really bummed when I saw the schedule.
Because you look at the Saturday games, it's also not that many Saturday home games. It's Cincinnati, it's Kansas State, it's West Virginia, and then Utah. Utah is going to be phenomenal, and Utah being senior night / I guess, BYU fans will get used to this, as Duke and Kentucky fans know, that it's also freshman night on that last home game of the season. It's also freshman night because that freshman's not coming back that next season because they're going to the NBA.
Like Jaeger will walk, and he'll get honored. Maybe down hall.
I don't know. I don't think they typically do it, but when it's basically their own senior night, but they've only been there 1 year.
Jackson Robinson last year, he got recognized for senior night. He was not a senior. He graduated in our program. Shout out Jackson Robinson, fellow member of the comms journalism program.
The Utah game I'm very excited for, but I'll just ask you this, Chase. What's the most exciting game on the schedule for you?
It's got to be Kansas at home, especially the reloaded Kansas. This Kansas team will be better than last year's Kansas team, given that they stay healthy. Obviously, last year they were playing with injuries. But they also probably have a bad taste in their mouth after what BYU did to them in their own home court last year, and so they're going to want to come into Provo and prove something. Kind of put that statement back out there that we're better than these guys, and this is going to be a great game.
Even though half that team from last year is not even with the BYU team this year, and same with Kansas.
Kansas every year, right? But you're bringing back Dickinson, you're bringing back yourself as always, so it'll be awesome.
No, that's got to be the game, and despite it being on a Tuesday, because also as a BYU fan, you're hoping, ooh, that would have been nice if there was going to be a chance at College Game Day coming to Provo, and there's really not.
On a Tuesday. But, I mean, Kansas will be in the top 10 at that point, maybe top 5, probably top 5. BYU, who knows? Last year at this point of the season, they were ranked as well, and so this will be a huge matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's got to be Kansas. I'm really excited for that Baylor game, though. I'm really, really high on this Baylor team this year with Jeremy Roach, VJ. They got Norchad Omier from Miami, who I love. They're going to be just up and down. They're going to be like a lot better version of the 23 Miami team, just way more talented. Very small, but man, they're going to be able to run a gun. That against this BYU team is going to be such a fun game. Utah at the Marriott Center is going to be awesome because then we'll get the revenge game from last year against Utah when they won at the Huntsman Center. And then, because let me look at the schedule here, because the first game at the Huntsman Center is January 18th. Luckily, that's another Saturday night, too. Both those games being on Saturday helps a lot, too.
And not being aired on the Pac-12 network is a huge upgrade because last year no one could watch it.
Rest in peace, Bill Walton, though. Rest in peace, Bill Walton.
Because he called that game, right? You were there.
Yeah, that's when met Bill Walton at that game. That was fantastic.
Yeah, we love Bill Walton here on this podcast. You also got lucky with a few scheduling things. Like you only have to play Kansas State, who's going to be tough, and Kansas once. You get both those games at home. I think that's a big deal. They do have to travel to Colorado. They don't get a return trip, and then of course they travel to Houston. Don't get a return trip from them. So I guess it kind of balances out there. Houston will be the second conference game of the season, and it's a big fat rude wake up call for Kevin Young and his coaching staff to go into Houston and try and win a basketball game.
Arizona State's going to be a sneaky one too because that's going to be during Christmas break. I think that's on New Year's Eve if I remember correctly.
New Year's Eve, people won't be packed. That's for sure.
Hopefully it'll be packed at the Marriott Center. It always is, so that's never an issue. But hopefully the student section, whatever students are still hanging around in Provo, show up to that game because that's good. That's going to be a kind of a good spot for Arizona State if we're being honest. You can snag a win in the Marriott Center without a quad one packed student section that game. So I mean that's how it typically goes in college basketball. But playing those conference games during Christmas break. That's one thing that does bother me with college basketball. I know they have to get those games in, but I'd almost rather do it where just play a game in the early December. Just get the ACC and these other conferences do that as well. Where first week of December, just throw one of the conference games in there because I know it's nice when you're in it. You're just in conference play from there on out, but not having the students there, it's unfortunate.
It is. I think you might have misheard me before. I don't think it'll be packed on Christmas. Oh,
I definitely misheard you then.
It's okay. I think there'll be a scarce showing of the holiday, and I don't think many people will be there. So
we'll be there.
Right.
I'll be there at least.
We'll be there. I'm staying in Utah with my wife's family this year, so
same here. Yeah, I'll be in Utah.
Yeah. Keeping on that trend of kind of trap games, what are some trap games you see on this conference schedule, Carter?
Trap games.
There's such a thing as trap games in college basketball, all right, because anyone can win at any given point.
Oh, no, I think there are definitely trap games because, I mean, there are definitely trap games.
It's more common. They happen all the time.
Yeah,
they're more common than college football.
But it's more of a look ahead spot. It's because of the look ahead spot, in my opinion, where I see the trap games. Cincinnati could be a little bit of a trap spot again. That happened last season. And then coming up on that Tuesday, they got to play Baylor, which I believe Baylor is going to be a top 5, top 10 team in the country this year. And Cincinnati, I don't think they're going to be great this season. I don't think they're going to be bad by any means. They obviously got the win against BYU and Provo last year.
Remember watching them in the Big-12 tournament, Carter?
Yeah, they lost a decent bit of guys. Bandango's back, though.
Right. They had an awesome little run there. I agree with you. What I'm actually looking at is the Cincinnati away game, February 8th, and then they have to stay out there on the East Coast to go to West Virginia. And not that Cincinnati's East Coast, but you know what I mean. It's going to be a long road trip because you have this Saturday at Cincinnati. I don't think they fly home all weekend to play West Virginia Tuesday. And we saw last year when BYU had, I think they were on the road for like 7. They ended up losing to Oklahoma State, I believe, who was a far inferior team. You can attribute some of that at least. I mean, they also just didn't play well being on the road that long. And so Cincinnati, West Virginia weekend, it's going to be tough.
And after that, that's a great point you brought up too, because after that, a couple weeks later, they played at Kansas State or
State and at Kansas.
Yeah, but they flew home in between. which was big. And so obviously at Kansas State, and then they flew home, and then they won at Kansas, as we all know. So, yeah. And also the key is in this Big 12 right now, let's move into this. We kind of went through the schedule already. Where should expectations be?
Expectations for this BYU team. Really tricky, Carter, because we like the roster. We like what we've heard from Kevin Young. Just have no idea what it actually looks like when you put it all together and throw it on a basketball court.
I know.
That's the point of non-conference, to kind of gauge our expectations. How good is this team actually? Obviously, coming into last year, we thought BYU sucked. Right?
Yeah. No, we thought this team was going to be kind of like football is right now. We'll see. Football's to be determined still because conference play just began, but
it's already exceeded expectations.
It's football are way exceeded expectations in my mind, but basketball last season, you're like, man, this team's going to have a rough time. They're going to have a rough time, and all of a sudden they're a 6 seed, should have been a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament last season.
We thought, I thought they'd win 5 conference games. They ended up going one above 500, I believe, and one of the better teams in the conference that year. So, is this year going to be similar to that? It looks like it on paper, but again, we'll need to see. That's not an excuse. I'm going to throw it out here now so that you all have my take before the season. All right. This is a tournament team. I don't think there's any big question about that. This should be an upper echelon team in the Big 12. I expect them to finish, I think, top 6. Anything outside the top 6 in the Big 12 this season, I think, would be disappointing. It's hard to say after everything I just said because of it's a first year and whatever. But this is the roster that can do it. And
yep.
You have home court advantage. You have Kevin Young, who I think we all believe is a great coach. So top 6 in the Big 12, which gets you a top 6 seed in the NCAA tournament.
And also, let's not beat around the bush. They need to be a tournament team because there is a lot of money here at stake. They've put a lot of money into the coach and NIL where, hey, this is it now. You've got to make the tournament. It's not hey, this is cute, the NIT. No. That's not how this works anymore. You've got to make this tournament. I think that's where the expectation needs to be at. Now, the tournament is such a crapshoot because you can be like, we need to make the Elite Eight. Like, okay, these tournament games are a disaster.
A game, how about? One game.
Yeah. Win one game in the tournament, you make the round of 32. That's a successful season. That's a really good season. And
haven't done it in forever, Carter. So
my
that would
expectation
be huge.
is just finish above 500 in the Big 12. If they finish above 500 in the Big 12, that's a great season.
That's a great season for any team in the Big 12 because we haven't even talked about the fact that this conference is even more insane than last year. You add Arizona, who again BYU gets to play in Provo.
That's a fun game too.
That's
going to be a really fun game, and that's BYU's best road game in my opinion.
They play Kansas at home, Carter, and then that Saturday they go to play at Arizona. Insane week for them.
We shouldn't go to the McHale Center for the Arizona game.
That would suck.
Yeah, we definitely shouldn't do that.
Suck.
If you're listening on Spotify, you have no idea what's happening. Anyhow, but yeah, no, I think Arizona's going to be a great game. The Big 12 is better, but yeah, I think expectations, this should be a tournament team. Now, this is where you can put the blue goggles on and get a little excited. This is one of the first times in a long time where I actually feel like there is real potential of the F word. Final Four. Final Four potential's there.
There, Carter. This is the roster to do it. You have a bona fide star in Yegor. You have seasoned guys. You have glue guys. You have a rim-running big. You have depth. What else do they need?
They've got the pieces. And the other key is they have NBA guys. When was the last time BYU truly had legit first-round NBA talent?
Bradley?
Jimmer?
Jimmer was a first round, but he didn't pan out in the NBA.
Yeah. But still, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think look, expectations, keep them at the tournament because then you're going to be disappointed, very disappointed when they're like, oh, they're only a 5 seed and they're a 1-point favorite against the 12 seed in the NCAA tournament this year. And the other thing about BYU basketball too is, which was so wild last year, is in the Big 12 is the way it works and the way the net and the analytics and everything is losing a game doesn't really matter. But winning a game is so massive. And so if you just win one, lose one every single week in the Big 12, you're a good team.
Snag a few quad ones. Don't drop any quad 3 or 4s. You can even drop a couple quad 3s and you'll be okay. That's all it takes.
Can't lose the Mississippi Valley. Can't lose the Mississippi Valley.
Can't drop that game.
The Vandals are coming out hot in November. We've got and the opening game, Central Arkansas, is on election night. So we're gonna be sitting there. We're gonna be sitting there watching BYU basketball, and the world's gonna be burning outside of the Marriott Center. We're like, we're fine. We're watching BYU basketball with Papa John's right now.
Our own little bubble, sitting on the press row. Just
Meanwhile, you're getting updates. Be like, oh, this person won the presidency. Okay, how many assists does Yegor Demon have right now?
Just right. Let me write my article, man. Not that we're doing that this year, but to get back to your point, Carter, and this is going to be like deep and cheesy, whatever. This season's already a big improvement.
How so?
The recruiting.
Ground. Yeah.
There's nothing to be disappointed about now, unless this team like 10 games all season. All right, but you've already made huge leaps in the recruiting game. Obviously, the NIL game. Even if fans can't see it, you see it on the court. You see it in these players. All right, and you are in the mix now for borderline generational guy in Dabansta coming up. Like, season's already a win in my book. Anything else they do in the tournament is really just a cherry on top. Now, should they, and we'll get to know the team better on, and we'll have more expectations, but this is already a huge win.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chase, I think that does it for us.
It does. What an awesome first episode.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Great. That was fantastic. I'm not gonna lie. Whenever all these reports are coming out, the social teams are putting out videos throughout college basketball, not just BYU alone, where they're putting out their first practice videos. Man, I got that feeling again. I got that itch. I'm like, you know what? I love football. I love college football. I love the NFL. There's nothing like college basketball. Being from North Carolina, it's just in the blood. It's in the blood. I eat, drink, sweat, blood, whatever you call it. I love college basketball so much. I can't wait. Make sure to follow us on social media at ChurchBallPod, at ChurchBallPod, at ChurchBallPod. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube right now, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are presented by the Field of 68. Check out all their other podcasts. They do a phenomenal job on so many other team podcasts, and also Field of 68 After Dark on big-time college basketball nights. They'll go live on YouTube, Twitter, and some other streaming outlets. Wherever you're consuming content, they're going live there. Make sure to check into all of that. It's going to be a fun season. We're going to be here all October long. We're going to have interviews. We're going to have in-depth stuff. We're going to I can't wait for the interviews, Chase. I can't wait for the interviews.
Me either. We're going to have a lot of like former players, current players, coaches, like
media members.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time.
Yeah, I cannot wait.
This is just the beginning.
And also scheduling. So we're going to be out twice a week. We'll put when this comes out, we're going to put it out, and we're going to have our set schedule of 2 days a week. Those days are to be determined, and we'll announce that very, very soon. And we will do live reactions right after games. A lot of the times we'll do Twitter Spaces, maybe on road games. We might even do a live stream, Chase. Maybe we'll do a watch along. Who knows? Who knows? We'll see. I can't wait. Make sure